I know the playoffs are supposed to be a crapshoot, but we're on the verge of having a rematch in the World Series.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I am an Emmy-nominated television producer who has been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade, and we're getting to the end of my fifth full season here at the Locked On Podcast Network. But don't worry, we're going to be doing a full off-season. In fact, I've already recorded some episodes that you're going to be seeing throughout November and December. In fact, I've already recorded the Christmas episode because, well, I'm a little bit of a loon. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, and download the Gametime app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, they are guaranteed. We're going to talk a little bit about the Diamondbacks and the Phillies game. We had three great games in 2 days. Today was better than the final score would indicate, but it was a game where one of the teams jumped out early and held on. And right now, the Philadelphia Phillies, well, they're going back home and they just have to split. But as we're going to talk about we're going to talk about the game, and we're going to talk a little bit about the fact that the Diamondbacks, do you know what? It's not over, Arizona. It is not over. In fact, they may be raising Arizona by the time this NLCS is done. Hey, before we get into talking about the Phillies in Arizona, I'm also going to talk a little bit in the third segment about the brawl, because I got a bunch of people who commented on YouTube, on Twitter, and everything. I have to address some of them because some of them, the posts were so long, I needed cliff notes to get through them. By the way, if you listen to the show every day and you're going to send some comments, put a hashtag Everyday Sully, because I want to see how many people are there every day listening to your pal Sully. But first and foremost, I was doing the trivia question. The trivia question was, it was the anniversary of the Carlton Fisk Bernie Carbo game. Bernie Carbo's home run was actually a little more dramatic than the Fisk home run. Fisk was the walk-off, but Carbo's was the one that turned the game around. I digress. In the eighth inning of that game, a member of the Big Red Machine hit a home run that appeared to put the game out of reach. It was 6-3 in the eighth, and the Reds looked like they were going to cruise. Which member of the Big Red Machine hit that supposed back-breaking home run? Red Sox 19521 gave a really good guess. He said Tony Perez. And that is a phenomenal guess because he hit the home run in Game 7 that turned the tide of Game 7 to the Reds. It made a 3-0 game, a 3-2 game. However, it was not Tony Perez who got the big hit in the big home run in Game 6. And it was Big John 08865. He got it correct. He said Cesar Geronimo hit the home run for the Reds. Now, Cesar Geronimo was the Reds' tremendous center fielder, part of that great team, and he was also acquired by the Reds in the same trade that brought them Joe Morgan. In the book that I'm writing about the 1972 postseason, the trade that brought in Joe Morgan and Cesar Geronimo was controversial for Reds fans who felt that they got snowed in that trade. I think they did okay. Big John 08865 said more trivia, and actually I had not thought of this. That is the last World Series game the Reds have lost. Was Game 6 of the 1975 World Series. The franchise currently have a 9-game World Series winning streak. They won Game 7. They swept the 76 series against the New York Yankees, and they swept the Oakland A's in 1990. and they haven't won a pennant since, much to the chagrin of Jeff Carr and everyone over at Locked On Reds. So there you go. Hey, good job there. And we are going to have a trivia question at the end of this episode. Don't you worry about that. Hey, let's just talk a little bit about the game. First of all, I thought it was really funny. I was watching the game, and the TBS announcers were saying that they were showing that the two Zacks were warming up, Zack Wheeler and Zach Gallen, and they were saying that the aces were on the mound and the managers were looking for length because the bullpens are just exhausted. And I actually yelled at the TV, whose fault is that? Because remember what happened in game 3 when Fought was throwing an absolute masterpiece and he was yanked from the game and turned that game into a bullpen game. And then the game after was a bullpen game. Yeah, maybe the bullpen wouldn't be quite as gassed if you didn't go through a parade of relievers in game 3. I can't get, Lovolo got him to game 5. They got him to a game 6 in the NLCS. And believe me, this team did not look like they were going to game 6 of the NLCS when they lost the second game 10-0 in Philadelphia. But that being said, my big problem, I'll reiterate this, my big problem with the quick hooks on things like that is you are, first of all, assuming that everyone you bring in is going to do their job. And also you're assuming that Zach Gallen, who was scheduled to pitch today, was going to throw a masterpiece. Now, he got in trouble in the first inning, and the Phillies, it wasn't that Schwarber, he hit like a little nubber off the end of the bat. And some things went against the Diamondbacks, and suddenly they were down 2-0 before they even came to bat. And for those of you wondering on the video why there was a little jump there, your pal Sully sneezed and I edited that out. But he did Gallen pitched well. He after the letting up the 2 runs in the first, he retired virtually everybody in the second, third, fourth, fifth, and he gave the Diamondbacks enough time to catch up. Now, Zack Wheeler, he was the player of the game. He owned October yesterday because he did everything you could have asked. He pitched. He was throwing a shutout into the 7th inning, and oh my God, they let him pitch the 7th inning, and we wound up letting up a home run to Alec Thomas. And when the Phillies scored a couple runs in the 8th, I remember when he let up the home run to Thomas, he still hadn't pitched that many pitches. And I remember thinking to myself, because it was a 4-1 game at that point. The Schwarber hit a home run, his 5th of the season. If the Phillies win the pennant in the next day, I think Schwarber is clearly the series MVP, although Wheeler could be as well because he won his 2 games. But I remember he let up, Harper and Schwarber hit the home runs to give him a little bit of wiggle room, and Wheeler let up the home run to Thomas. But I remember thinking to myself, I'd bring out Wheeler in the 8th and do the sort of, you're going batter for batter at this point. But when the Phillies scored 2 more runs in the 8th and suddenly became a 6-1 game, then I think Thompson made the right move. And you notice he didn't bring in Craig Kimbrell. I wouldn't, as someone who's a veteran of watching the 2018 World Series, Kimbrell makes me nervous in some of those big events. He's had a wonderful career, but I was thinking to myself when I saw, we all saw how he struggled in the postseason for the Red Sox in 2018. We've seen how he struggled this year. Remember when he was left in the bullpen way back in 2013? It was a controversial move, easy for you to say, by Freddie Gonzalez, the manager of the Braves at the time, and that he didn't bring in his closer, and Uribe hit the big home run for Los Angeles. I believe it was Uribe. I'm doing some of this from memory. And it was, why didn't they bring in Kimbrell? Why didn't they bring in Kimbrell? Maybe he was onto something, because we've seen Kimbrell wet the bed over and over again in the postseason. Get Matt Strahm ready for Sir Anthony Dominguez if it's a close out the pennant situation. You don't always have to bring the closer out there. When the Red Sox won the World Series that they were cheating in, remember that, Astros fans, I say that every time, in 2018, Alex Cora had seen enough, and he brought Chris Sale in to clinch the World Series and not Kimbrell. But, it was it was a better game than the 6-1 final would have you believe. There was a lot of good defense. There was a bunch of balls that were hit into deep center field, and Rojas wound up tracking someone down. The Phillies infield made some great plays. And you know what? I mean, do believe that the Phillies defense probably saved at least 2 runs. Arizona's defense also saved a couple of runs as well. So yeah, it was a close game going into the sixth, and then by the eighth, it was a misleading final score. It was better than a 6-1 game, but you know, the Phillies did what they had to do. They jumped ahead early. They got home runs from where they needed to. All their home runs have been solo home runs, but you know what? If you keep piling them up, there you go. Wheeler did a good job, and the bullpen got the outs when they needed to get them. You know, Zach Gallen did okay. Wasn't a masterpiece, but he did okay. And the D-backs just couldn't get a rally going, and they're going to head off to Philadelphia. But not all is lost. But for my many friends in Philadelphia, my many relatives who live out there, hope you get some tickets. And you know what? I have an idea for those tickets. All right, you're darn tootin'. I have an idea for these tickets because look at my friends. Let's get my cousin Bill out there. Let's get my friend Stephanie out there. Let's get everyone I know in, Trisha, everyone in my cousin John, my cousin Jen, everyone who lives in Wilmington, Delaware, who have been diehard Philadelphia Phillies fans since the 70s. I remember the days of Greg Luzinski, the days of Steve Carlton and Tug McGraw and Jay Johnstone and Bake McBride and all of them. They rooted for all of them. They've been diehard Phillies fans ever since then. And so now is the time. Get a chance to see them clinch the pennant. That's when you got to go to Gametime. Go to Gametime. Are you listening to me? All my cousins who live in Delaware. Joe Biden territory. That's not political. That's Joe Biden territory for those who don't know where Delaware is. And if you're a Phillies fan like my cousin, go download the Gametime app and get your tickets because you shouldn't have to worry about how you're going to get the tickets. You just better worry about the Phillies bats exploding and trying to clinch. Come on, Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy your tickets for all the sporting events you want, and also for music, for comedy, for theater events. You got killer last minute deals, kind of like Game 6 of the NLCS. You would buy Game 7 just in case. Next segment, I'll tell you why. You can get all in prices, view from the seats, best price guarantee, and takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. By all in prices, I mean there's no hidden fees. You've done that. You bought something like, oh, it costs $20, and you get the bill. So why is it $40? Lots of fees. You don't get that in Gametime. And say, oh, I got a ticket. Oh my God, it's facing the wrong way. These are horrible seats. You get to see the seats. They show you the view. Yeah, but you got to lose that email. It's going to be lost somewhere in all the spam. Nope. Just a couple of taps on there, and it goes directly to your app. And with zone deals, you could pick the section, and Gametime picks the seats for an average of an 18% savings. And Gametime guarantee, that means you'll always get the best price. If you find the tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So all my cousins, all the many Sullys spread out throughout Delaware who have been Phillies fans since the days of Steve Carlton, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDON MLB. Easy for you to spell for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I gave a little hiccup in the middle of I had a tiny hiccup in the middle of a live read. First time that's happened. Hey, game 6. When does it start? Well, if the Rangers win tomorrow, and like almost all of America, I am rooting for the Rangers, and not because I'm an Astros hater, because I want to see that series go 7. I do. I actually wouldn't mind seeing Philadelphia and Arizona go 7. I think that'd be good. That'd be fun as well. 7 games are fun. But we have Uvalde and Valdez. I actually think that pitching matchup goes to the Rangers. Although Valdez, we also could be a big game pitcher. I just like Uvalde right now, and I would not stun me if there's a game seven. If there is, then Monday, D-backs and Phillies are playing in the afternoon here in Los Angeles County. It'll be a 2 o'clock start, so I get to play it in my classroom where my buddy D, my student, my classroom, is a big Dodger fan and a wonderful, wonderful young kid. My buddy. We watch the games together. We have it playing on the. It's no longer a blackboard; it's now a whiteboard, and I project the game out. It's a lot of fun. And then the Rangers and Astros would play Game Seven at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock here in LA. But the that but if the Rangers and Astros are done tomorrow, then that D-backs Phillies game starts in the evening. Nola and Kelly, that is a really intriguing matchup. Kelly is a fine pitcher. He is. We saw he pitched well the other day. Nola has been terrific this postseason, obviously. And look at momentum is on the Philadelphia side. Um, and everything, they're going home, raucous atmosphere and everything like that. But how do you shut down that raucous atmosphere? You do it with a good pitcher. And you have a full day of rest for the bullpen. And although Mantipley is probably going to make appear in all the games, it seems like some of the Diamondbacks' big pitchers didn't go today, so you're going to have a rested and ready pen. Let Kelly in and Lavolo, if you're listening to me, and I know I have your ear. Managers have to manage an elimination game differently than how you manage a regular season game. We're going to get a little bit into the analytics stuff and everything. And I talked the other day, I don't think analytics is a dirty word. I don't think it's a dirty thing, but I do think there has to be a combination of using the analytics for information to help you make decisions and making those decisions based on the context of the game. You manage an elimination game differently than you manage a game against the Brewers in the middle of July. What's at stake is greater. The reason why you manage some things in the middle of July differently is got a bunch of games left. You play the percentages and you don't do things that will wear out the game. If it's an elimination game, you have to realize, okay, I can't leave any of my weapons on the bench, and I've got to have a different strategy. Do you know two managers who did that, who managed elimination games really, really well? Bruce Bochy and Terry Francona. They understood that sometimes I got to use a pitcher in a way that I don't normally use. I got to bring someone out in a way that I don't normally use because there's too much on the line right now. And you saw that when there was a bunch of games where the Red Sox had their back against the wall in Terry Francona's tenure with the Red Sox and was tenure with Cleveland. And it didn't always work, but he always knew that he had to manage those elimination games differently. Bochy would use pitchers. He threw Lincecum out of the bullpen sometimes. Obviously, we remember what happened when Madison Bumgarner pitched the final 5 innings of Game 7 of the World Series. But he also brought in Jeremy Affeldt very early in the game in a time he would not normally do that because he knows, this is a different situation. And so remember that, Lavolo. Don't leave any of your best weapons in the bullpen, but also don't yank out Kelly too early. If Kelly is dealing, if he's pulling out what happened with Fott the other day, let him pitch. Let him pitch deep into the game. But if he's not, pull him immediately. So, but I think Kelly is a talented pitcher. The bullpen is rested and ready, and Arizona has nothing to lose at this point. Because Arizona got so whumped the first 2 games, especially the 10-0 massacre. The fact that they even got back to Philadelphia shows that they did what they had to do. In so many ways, they did what they had to do. Obviously, it would have been ideal for them to come back with the lead, kind of like the way that Houston is coming back to Arlington with the lead. But if they get a decent performance out of Kelly, they then game 7 is the definition of a crapshoot. Because look at the Phillies have a good pitching staff, but they'll have burnt Wheeler and they'll have burnt Nola in these 2 games. It is critical for the Phillies to win this game today. Absolutely critical. And this is not a knock on what's his name? The guy the Phillies didn't like, Ranger Suarez. This is not a knock on Ranger Suarez. It's not. And it's not a knock on who the hell was the pitcher in game? I can't remember. I can't, forgive me. I've been too busy coming up with references of Phillies from the yeah, they played a bullpen game. They were playing Yakety Sax in game 4. So Ranger Suarez would be pitching in game 7. Again, he's a fine pitcher, but it's not exactly like they're throwing Sandy Koufax circa 1965 out there. So it is important for the Phillies to get this win, because then we're in coin toss territory. And I've seen plenty of series where the collective butts are starting to squeeze. And you're thinking, oh, God, I thought we were going to do this. And weren't we going to win this? I thought this was already in the bag. So you got to, if you are the Phillies and you want to be a surefire bet, win tomorrow, because Kelly, you got to jump on him early. Because Kelly gets to settle down and all of a sudden the Diamondbacks bullpen gets to cruise towards the end. It's got to make the game, whatever time it's at, it's going to be a good bet that whatever way the game goes, it could be a real good one. By the way, are we talking about bets? I think we are, because look, it's the playoffs. We're on the verge of the World Series, and it's not too late to make your postseason debut with FanDuel, which is America's #1 sports book. Join FanDuel today, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to create your new account. Then you can get on the action from the first pitch until the final out or the walk-off hit. Bet on everything from strikeouts to home runs, and I bet it'll be a solo shot for the Phillies, to who will win the game. I'm thinking it'll be either the Phillies or the Diamondbacks. And if you don't want to wait for the whole game to get a W, predict what will happen in the next at bat with quick bets. Hey, Kyle Schwarber is up. I bet he's going to hit a homer. So head on over to FanDuel.com/lockedon right now. Step up to the plate this postseason with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Make the best of every moment with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. I've got a ton of responses from talking about the brawl that went on the other day between Houston and Texas. And some of them, again, were so long, I had to print them out, read half of them. I fell asleep, got drowsy, and I had the cliff notes for some. I had to have some be books on tape. So, some of them, I can't read all of them. There's a fellow by the name of Mindset Master 7569, who wrote several tomes to me. He was basically saying, he was getting on me for saying that Abreu throwing at Garcia was stupid, and I've been saying this for well over a decade. I think throwing at batters is stupid, and I don't care if the guy hits a home run, flipped the bat, pointed to the sky, and had one of those dragons you see at a Chinese New Year parade going around behind him. You know what? If you don't like him hitting a home run off of you, tough. Mindset Master says, you don't prance around, showboat, and get off lightly, do you? Well, I don't care about that. I'm not a big machismo guy. I'm more into winning baseball games. Uh, I'm sure since you're favoring the Rangers, that's a natural reaction. Don't paint me out like I grew up in Dallas or Fort Worth. I'm rooting for the Rangers for one main reason. Two, Bruce Bochy was my dad's favorite manager, and I'm a big fan of what I call the generational moment, which is that moment that a fan base says, "Oh my God, I thought I would never see this happen." And the Rangers, who have won exactly 0 World Series in their history, a championship for the Rangers would be a generational moment. And no, we got Brian Dunlap. My Fraser 6340 wrote to me, "Your generational moment was Altuve hit that 3-run home run. The Astros are going to the World Series." It's not a generational moment. The Astros are trying to win their first World Series in months. Okay. Mindset Master wrote a lot of things. Um, uh, Back and forth. He did say that they were trying to get into the psychological state of the Rangers, and that they were a little too fragile. I don't know. They were 3 outs away from winning the game. But here's something now a couple of people like Astros underscore Alex said that no one cared about the Garcia celebration. No one in the dugout cared. Garcia was being sensitive. I think Abreu meant to hit him. I think he got, and I think that's stupid to hit him, especially in a postseason game. To put a runner on base in a close postseason game, I think that's banana boats time. But Mindset Master, here's something I will give the Astros credit for. I know you're an Astros fan. Here's one thing I would give the Astros credit for, and that is they retaliated in the best way you could. Yeah, the beanball stuff and everything like that, whatever. They retaliated by fighting back, by not letting that home run sink them, by actually coming back and rallying. The 3-run home run was the retaliation. And I've always felt that. I've always felt that, even when it involves teams that I personally root for. I don't care about bean brawls. I don't care about throwing pitches. My favorite player of all time is Pedro Martinez. And the one element of his game I never liked was him throwing at batters. Come on, Pedro, just get the people out. Everyone remembers that game in 2004 when Varitek and A-Rod got into the big fight. And people say, "Oh, that's the moment the Red Sox woke up." Well, they were 3 outs away from losing that game with Rivera on the mound. The moment that was a turnaround wasn't Jason Varitek keeping his mask on, which I wasn't a big fan of, and pushing his glove into Rodriguez's face. The big moment was when Bill Miller hit the walk-off home run off of Rivera. If Bill Miller pops up or something like that, all anyone will remember is the Red Sox were outclassed by the Yankees. It doesn't work without the big home run. It doesn't work without the comeback. And I give the Astros piles of credit for staying focused and getting the darn win. And I put a lot of that respect pile on the lap of Dusty Baker. I think that's what he does best. Is keeping teams focused and having them move forward, not getting lost in the minutia. Not a fan of throwing at batters or anything. I'm a fan of winning games. And the Astros did just that. So I give them tons of credit. And they're going to play tomorrow, and they're going to try to get to their 3rd straight World Series, which is quite an accomplishment. And we all know Dusty Baker's going to the Hall of Fame anyway, but this is a way to really cement everything. If the Astros win back-to-back titles, if I were Dusty Baker, I would drop the mic and retire right then and there. What a way to go. And don't pull a Tony La Russa, who won the World Series in his final game as a manager and then ruined it by coming back to the White Sox. No, Dusty, right off in the sunset. But I digress. It looks like, let's do the trivia question. Yordan Alvarez looks like he is the front runner to win the American League Championship Series MVP. And this would be his 2nd time winning an ALCS MVP, because he was the ALCS MVP against my Red Sox in 2021. Here is the trivia question, keeping in mind all the pennants that the Astros have won recently, including the few that I won't mention. But here's the question. Who was the first Houston Astro to win the League Championship Series MVP award? Which Astro? We know that Jordan Alvarez is probably going to win 2, but which Astro was the first ever to win a league championship series MVP? That's your trivia question for today. Meanwhile, follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, talking about the playoffs and what a beautiful thing they are, and saying let's play the game and not throw balls at each other. Do you know why? That's just mean. This is Locked On MLB for the 22nd day of October 2023. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. And please don't throw anything at me.